Hello, I'm Bryan Frazier, and I am running for Clallam County Commissioner, District 1. I want to work for you. I want to bring your voices to the county seat. I want to know what you want, what you think should happen in Clallam County. I belong to a proud farming family who's been in public service in Clallam County for 5 generations. You may hear that I'm a one-issue candidate, and I would like to dispel that notion. I'm not all about just the Carlsberg urban growth area. The Carlsberg urban growth area was just the catalyst 25 years ago in 1990 that got me involved in county politics. And through my investigations into the Growth Management Act, the GMA, the water use issues, I have discovered discrepancies in the use of the ordinances, the laws, and the planning that have led me to dig deeper into county politics, and ultimately was the catalyst to my decision in May of 2015 to run for county commissioner. If you're fed up with the status quo, if you're fed up with the commissioners sitting on various boards and commissions, running from chair to chair, board to board, commission to commission, and then coming back to their county commissioner seat and approving their own recommendations, I'm your candidate. If you want to change the status quo, you, the voters, can change that, and you can help me bring transparency, accountability, and openness to county government. There's a few issues I'd like to touch on today, starting with of Carlsberg, of course, which was the catalyst. When I started looking at the designation of Carlsberg as an urban growth area, I first discovered that Carlsberg never fit the designation of an urban growth area, because Washington state law states that in rural areas, those areas with limited areas of more intense rural development does not constitute urban growth. Carlsberg has always been rural. It's always been a farming community and a mill community at one time until the 1960s. And for some reason, the commissioners in 1990 chose to designate Carlsberg as an urban growth area and began to change the face of what Carlsberg looks like. Now, in light of this, the community as a whole voted against it. And we started looking at the water issues here. And we don't have enough water in the Sequim Dungeness area to support new growth. We have enough water rights in this area to support the existing population until approximately 2030 to 2050. And no new water rights will be issued. They're treating it as a closed system unless they can mitigate the use of water through the water bank and the WIRA 18. I have from the Carlsberg Wastewater Sewer Facilities Plan an item that was very disturbing to me. And I think people in Carlsberg should be aware of this should the sewer system ever be built. In their Clallam County Carlsberg Wastewater Facilities Plan, in cooperation with Gray and Osborne, I discovered a paragraph in here that was disturbing, in that, and this was done in June 14th of 2014. On page 6.3, a paragraph here, it states, "It is assumed that the full build-out service area include these water systems, and the services to these locations would include a transfer of water rights to the PUD. Estimated future water demands was extracted from PUD's 2010 water system plan and from growth information provided in the Carlsberg sewer feasibility study. This analysis assumes that their permit-exempt water rights can be consolidated into the PUD's new water right." What this means is that if you are on an individual well and you connect to the new sewer system, the county and the PUD will just automatically assume your water rights They will meter your well and meter you down to the 125 gallons of water per day as required per the equivalent residential unit requirement of the sewer system. Most people were not aware that their water rights would simply be taken from them by the PUD. This led to further investigation into the Department of Public Works at Clallam County. Bob Martin's the director, where I found in meeting minutes discussed with Gray and Osborne, again, their consulting firm, that they have acknowledged a quantity problem here in Carlsberg and Sequim in the Dungeness Valley, that we don't have enough water, and that the sewer system and the growth being driven into this area would result in a need to buy additional water from an outside source. And as I read through the minutes, I discovered in here on page 5, starting at paragraph 19, they discussed pump and dump. What this is using existing wells and existing water rights, pumping openly and freely back into the Dungeness River in an attempt to augment or raise the water flow. Well, when they first sleeved the ditches, enclosed them, and what they call tight lining, 120 plus wells went dry. And the attempt was made by Ann Soul, the hydrogeologist, to try this pump and dump, and it had zero effect on the river and on the shallow aquifer. And those people whose wells went dry were forced to spend thousands of dollars to deepen their wells and go into the middle aquifer, because the shallow aquifer was now depleted to the point where it wouldn't support their wells. On paragraph 20, it was discussed about a direct supply from alternative water sources, and it was noted that there may be some concerns from groups over interbasin water transfers. Mike Gallagher said that the Port Angeles has such a surplus of water rights that ecology could consider an interbasin transfer from that basin. Port Angeles has as much water rights as Tacoma. Now, thinking logically, especially in this day and age, just because you have water rights doesn't mean you have the water to go along with those rights. Now, you go on to paragraph 21, and it was noted that Sequim and Carlsberg and others in the region should consider avoiding silo thinking because of the water limitations in the area. This is direct quotes. Mike Gallagher again agreed, noting that success of the resource pooling in Lacey, Tumwater, Olympia, and Thurston County, based on suggestions that the city of Sequim may find an intertie with Port Angeles desirable at some future time, and inquired whether it might be reasonable that the city could bear a portion of the cost to convey Port Angeles water through Carlsberg on its way to the city of Sequim distribution system. And they did not dismiss the possibility that it would require an approach for additional partners beyond Port Angeles and Sequim. This would be a millions of dollar undertaking to build a pipeline from Port Angeles to Sequim. But I don't think the Department of Ecology or the EPA are going to agree to an interbasin transfer, especially given the state of the aquifers and the water supply at this date and time. And it was noted that the Dungeness Water Exchange does not have sufficient amount of credits to purchase or accommodate Carlsberg. So this is just another document that I came up with when it comes to the critical water in the region. Port Angeles, Sequim, Carlsberg, Forks. So I never speak on a subject unless I have documentation to back myself up. So when you hear our county officials say that they never discussed that or it was never thought of, I have evidence to the contrary. And this is another thing that has driven me to run for county commissioner, is the lack of transparency, the lack of accountability, the lack of openness about what's really being discussed, and the apparent lack of information or disinformation given to the citizens of Forks, Port Angeles, Sequim, Carlsbad, and Clallam County as a whole. They talk only about what they want to talk about, and when you bring up the issues, they basically gavel you out at the hearings. They don't want to hear it. Which brings me to another issue about public hearings. The public hearings process in this county so far, in the last 25 years that I've been an activist, is to make their decisions in the back rooms, out of the public view, and then to hold a public hearing, to quote Commissioner Jim McIntyre, only as their legal obligation to do so. They're not going to take your comments into consideration. They're not going to really listen to what you have to say. They're not going to take your concerns and weigh them against what ordinances and proposals they're making. They simply hold a hearing, already knowing that they've made their decisions and how they're going to vote, sit up there while people have their say, look at each other and say, motion carried, gavel you out. And everybody's left astounded and in wonderment of what just happened. Don't we have a say? Don't we count? We've heard the commissioners talk about the 265 property transactions that have taken place since 1992 in Carlsbad. Those are property developers, realtors, and businessmen. In Carlsbad, there's a total of 113 businesses. Of those businesses, 62 are commercial. The balance are mom and pop operations based out of their homes, beauty salons, clothing, dog grooming, etc. Given that history, when we talk about stakeholders, they're talking about people who don't live here. They're talking about people who have businesses here and who want to expand their businesses. And those are the only people they take into consideration. They don't consider the rest of the population and what effect it will have on them. Given the fact that Carlsbad has the #1 population in Clallam County of citizens living on fixed incomes, they discount that completely. It's of no consequence. They use terms that I find appalling when they want to push a project through. They've done it in Carlsbad, they've done it in Sequim, they've done it in Forks, they've done it down on the waterfront, and it's the mitigated determination of non-significance. Meaning basically that somebody from the county has gone and looked at the area or looked at the paperwork and have determined that we don't need to file an environmental impact statement. We don't need to follow SEPA guidelines because now we're going to mitigate through ourselves that whatever we do will not have a significant impact on the population of that area. Now, this is taking not only our quality of life away from us, but it's also harming our financial stability at this point in time. It's a direct incursion upon our individual rights and our property rights. And I think you, the voters, can help me change that policy. We have a timber exchange with DNR and, with the county and one of the top logging firms. And what I'm interested to find out is what like-kind exchange was that conveyance of that property swap from standing timber to a clear-cut area. What was the financial sacrifice that the county made for one individual, one private firm? And I think that's a question that really needs to be answered, and I will be looking into that. We've heard it said that we have enough water in this area. Well, on Sunday, June 12th, while this was being said by a sitting commissioner. The Port Angeles Daily News article came out with an article about the Elwha River and how critically low it was, and how at 300 cubic feet per second would be harmful to the returning salmon, that it could cause diseases, could cause fish kills, could really be detrimental to the return runs. Well, that day, according to the USGS Water Survey, the Elwha River hit 296 cubic feet per second and had an average temperature of about 70 degrees. So it had already come true right at the time that this statement of plenty of water, we don't need to worry, was being issued. I think there is a relative dissonance or denial that we have a water issue in this county, and that the sitting commissioners and city councils will continue to deny that we have water issues in this county. And when they say that the county doesn't control the water, that may be true. The Department of Ecology and the Environmental Protection Agency control how water is used. However, the county does have control over their zoning practices in critical aquifer recharge areas and in water sensitive areas. They have ignored their opportunity to downzone water critical areas to stop the overcapitalization of an already over-appropriated water source. The Dungeness River and the Elwha River are not going to flow any deeper or any faster this summer. And the outlook for snowfall and rain in this coming fall and winter is bleak at best. And should we get snow in our Olympics this winter, it will probably result in just a dusting of snow that will quickly melt away, run down our rivers and our aquifers to the Strait of Juan de Fuca as fast as it can go. We take a look at evidence of this in the upzoning of areas to 6 to 10 homes per acre. Now we're talking about small cottage homes on 4,000 square foot lots. Packed them in like sardines. Now you look at a water critical area, as evidenced here. This just happens to be the Carlsberg UGA, and I keep going back to Carlsberg as an example that I'm familiar with in what the county is doing overall. So we look at this portion right here, which is on the corner of Carlsberg Road and West Runyon Road. Carlsberg Road and West Runyon Road. It's a 40-acre parcel where 3 acres are zoned commercial and the balance is zoned residential. They've upzoned this area to 10 homes per acre. Now this area is denied access to public water, meaning they cannot get PUD water. So they have to drill wells. They drilled 2 wells into the middle aquifer. As you can see by the pictures that were just shown, this 40-acre parcel covers 40 acres of open space and farmland that they want to put under impermeable surfaces with homes stacked one right on top of the other at 10 homes per acre. Now you take that number of residential units multiplied by the number of sinks and bathtubs and toilets, and then you add in the water use from the sewer system, and you can see how the water rights that we have today will quickly diminish in a rapid period of time. But to offset this, the 2 wells that were dug on that property the PUD would simply assume those water rights and add them into their own system, yet still deny the people on that property PUD water. They'll assume the rights, meter the well, meter into each individual property, and you get to pay for the water from that point forward. Additionally, the property developer has to install the infrastructure, not only for the sewer system for each parcel, but the water conveyance system for each parcel at their cost, which drives the cost of each lot up, which makes it hard to sell the property. They've been sitting on this property since the 1960s when they inherited it. And this is a concern of theirs, the additional costs of developing their property, adding the sewer, the additional cost of connection fees and user fees. So this is just one example and why this is such a catalyst for digging deeper into the Clallam County political policies, if you would, and how they avoid or try to skirt certain issues. We turn to the $1 million grant to the Port of Port Angeles, the $285,000 grant to the City of Port Angeles, and the $1.7 million from the Opportunity Fund for undesignated projects. Celinda, our treasurer, was absolutely correct in protecting not only our rights as taxpayers, but also protecting herself and the liability that she could have assumed if it was discovered that this was done inappropriately. I have to agree there wasn't enough public process involved. This was another decision made behind closed doors, out of the public view, and then sprung on the community in a so-called public hearing. It would have been simple for the commissioners to agree at the outset to either follow Celinda's advice and bring it in front of a Superior Court judge and get a ruling, or to simply pull the warrants, go back and redo the public process as they ultimately did on June 30th of this year. I think a lot of time was wasted, a lot of energy and money was wasted in continuing to be so determined and so stubborn that they were right, when if you look at the actual ordinances in place and the policies in place at the time these grants were given, they did violate those policies. And then after the fact, after the deed was done and the objection was raised, they attempted to rewrite those policies. That, to me, in my opinion, shows by the evidence that they knew what they had done was wrong. So setting aside the 16-page document from Prosecuting Attorney Nichols and setting aside all of the objections and arguments from the 3 sitting commissioners, I believe that in the end, Celinda was proven right. And now we can go back and redo what should have been done in the first place and have a full and complete public process and hearing. On that note, the $1.7 million for undesignated projects in and of itself is a violation of the state RCWs, the Recognized Code of Washington, the law governing the use of the sales and use tax for distressed counties. It says in there very specifically that this fund is created from a 0.09% additional sales tax that we all pay to create this Distressed Areas Capital Fund, known as the Opportunity Fund. And there's a board there that is supposed to be looking at the projects that are already listed on the county's comprehensive plan or in the capital facilities portion of the comprehensive plan, or the comprehensive plan and capital facilities plans of the cities and towns located within the county. So these projects must already be listed as a project available for economic development. So simply by listing $1.7 million for undesignated projects is a direct violation of this law. And that in and of itself is enough of an objection for not only the public to take part, but for our treasurer to say, we can't do this because it's not proper, it's illegal. This is just another example of how the commissioners will try to slide things through unless we have enough public oversight and a public overview to be able to say no and put a stop to it. This is where getting a public access channel into our county and city governments, our boards and commissions, is really important. We really got to push on this. We really need to have a public access channel. What this will do will bring to light those issues and make the sitting commissioners and council members and board members more conscious of how they're behaving, what they're saying, and what they're doing, because there will be a video record of the process. And the democracy is all about process. We need to have process to come to a logical and acceptable conclusion at the end of everything that we do. And that requires public involvement. So if you're in question about what happened during this meeting, or what happened during that meeting, or what happened during this hearing, you can go back to the video record and see exactly what occurred. It is like wearing body cameras. It leaves no doubt as to who said what and on what subject. So the Peninsula Area Public Access is in the process of trying to bring public access channels to Clallam County government, and I fully support that. And if I'm elected as county commissioner, I will do everything I can to make that a reality. And I think the public as a whole will benefit, because information is a powerful tool. And that's one thing that we've lacked in this county over the last decades, is information. So please help and support public access for Clallam County. In closing, I would like to ask for your vote. I would like to ask for your support for my campaign as commissioner. I think I can be an effective leader for this county. I want to carry your voices with me. I want to change the policies and the way things are being done at the county level to include more public input, more public access, and come up with ordinances and projects that are acceptable by the larger proportion of the community, not just specific businessmen or what they call specific stakeholders. Everybody in this county is a stakeholder when it comes to our development, when it comes to our water rights, when it comes to our property rights. You need to have a say, and you need to be taken seriously. I would like to bring a proposal to the table, have a hearing, take down the testimony, look at the policy or the proposal or the ordinance, have an open discussion, involve community members in that discussion, and see what we can do to make it better. We need to unify our vision for Clallam County. We need to unify the vision for downtown Port Angeles, because that is the foyer to our Olympic parks. That's what people are going to see if they come in by the water. We need to have some cohesive style downtown. And for heaven's sakes, please, we need to clean it up. Again, I ask for your support as running as county commissioner. I ask for your vote. And I think together, you, the public, and myself, that we can create a better Clallam County for our future. Thank you. And no new water rights will be issued. They're treating it as a closed system unless they can mitigate the use of water through the water bank and the WIRA 18. I have from the Carlsberg Wastewater Sewer Facilities Plan an item that was very disturbing to me. And I think people in Carlsberg should be aware of this should the sewer system ever be built. In their Clallam County Carlsberg Wastewater Facilities Plan, in cooperation with Gray and Osborne, I discovered a paragraph in here that was disturbing. in that, and this was done in June 14th of 2014. On page 6.3, a paragraph laws and the planning that have led me to dig deeper into county politics and ultimately was the catalyst to my decision in May of 2015 to run for county commissioner. If you're fed up with the status quo, if you're fed up with the commissioners sitting on various boards and commissions, running from chair to chair, board to board, commission to commission, and then coming back to their county commissioner seat and approving their own recommendations, I'm your candidate. If you want to change the status quo, you, the voters, can change that, and you can help me bring transparency, accountability, and openness to county government. There's a few issues I'd like to touch on today, starting with of Carlsberg, of course, which was the catalyst. When I started looking at the designation of Carlsberg as an urban growth area, I first discovered that Carlsberg never fit the designation of an urban growth area. Here, it states, it is assumed that the full build-out service area include these water systems, and the services to these locations would include a transfer of water rights to the PUD. Estimated future water demands was extracted from PUD's 2010 water system plan and from growth information provided in the Carlsberg sewer feasibility study. This analysis assumes that their permit-exempt water rights can be consolidated into the PUD's new water right. What this means is that if you are on an individual well and you connect to the new sewer system, the county and the PUD will just automatically assume your water rights. They will meter your well and meter you down to the 125 gallons of water per day as required per the equivalent residential unit requirement of the sewer system. Most people were not aware because Washington state law states that in rural areas, those areas with limited areas of more intense rural development does not constitute urban growth. Carlsberg has always been rural. It's always been a farming community and a mill community at one time until the 1960s. And for some reason, the commissioners in 1990 chose to designate Carlsberg as an urban growth area and began to change the face of what Carlsberg looks like. Now, in light of this, the community as a whole voted against it. And we started looking at the water issues here. And we don't have enough water in the Sequim Dungeness area to support new growth. We have enough water rights in this area to support the existing population until approximately 2030 to 2050. And hello, I'm Bryan Frazier, and I am running for Clallam County Commissioner, District 1. I want to work for you. I want to bring your voices to the county seat. I want to know what you want, what you think should happen in Clallam County. I belong to a proud farming family who's been in public service in Clallam County for 5 generations. You may hear that I'm a one-issue candidate, and I would like to dispel that notion. I'm not all about just the Carlsberg urban growth area. The Carlsberg urban growth area was just the catalyst 25 years ago in 1990 that got me involved in county politics. And through my investigations into the Growth Management Act, the GMA, the water use issues, I have discovered discrepancies in the use of the ordinances,